I had a patient recently ask me, he said, I'd like to leave a testimonial. And I had to try to explain, firstly I said, please don't do that. And he was like, why? And I was like, I tried to explain to him the reason why he couldn't do that and how he could leave a review but not a testimonial. So I thought I'd make this video to explain what the difference is. How do you leave a review and not a testimonial? So the first thing is to not mention anything about what happened in the treatment, the results that happened to you, whether they be good or bad, just to not mention the treatment itself. Google reviews, testimonials, and how can I help my practitioner by leaving a review? How can I do that appropriately, especially in Australia where we have strict rules imposed by AHPRA, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Authority. And we're going to talk about that in this video today. It's 2023 when I'm making this, and I'm making this for a couple of reasons. One is because the way that people find your practitioners on the internet, it has increasingly been reliant on these kinds of things. So when you're on a practitioner's Facebook page or on their Google page, Google listing, like often people Google you to find you, the relevance of that, like Google sees the relevance of that listing or that person's business based on the reviews that are there. So I'm going to talk in this video in detail about the reasons why it's difficult for practitioners in Australia to do this. And I'm also putting this video out there for my patients. One is because I had a patient recently ask me, he said, I'd like to leave a testimonial. And I had to try to explain, firstly I said, please don't do that. And he was like, why? And I was like, and I tried to explain to him the reason why he couldn't do that and how he could leave a review but not a testimonial. So I thought I'd make this video to explain the difference between a review and a testimonial for Australian regulations if you're a registered health practitioner in Australia. In the past, because I've been really cautious about these AHPRA regulations, I've never asked my patients to do any reviews. But I recently moved clinics about a year ago and I've got a new premises now. And it does make a difference for when people Google acupuncture, my area, or Chinese herbs, my area, whether you come up or not, it has got a lot to do with how many reviews are there. Like, regardless of what the reviews say, just the fact that there are some reviews there, what that's doing is that's telling the search engine, whether it's Google or Bing or whatever it is, and most of the time it is Google, they just kind of dominate everything, you know, people go in and search that. And they're looking up in the location, like, especially if they're looking for a practitioner in their area. And so whether that person who's searching even goes and sees those reviews, the search is much more likely to come up, like the practitioner's business will come up on the search if there are some reviews there versus no reviews there or not one review there. So one of the rules or regulations from AHPRA is that practitioners who are registered are not allowed to solicit for testimonials. So that means I'm not allowed to ask patients, could you please leave a testimonial? I can ask people to leave a review, which is essentially what I'm doing in this video, right? But I'm also explaining what the difference between those things are so that you as a person who wants to support your local business, and you might be in the US or the UK and you may not have these kinds of regulations, and you could leave a testimonial if you're in those countries. So on this channel, we talk about things that are related to patients who have Chinese medicine, people who are interested in Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbs and Chinese diet therapy and things like that. Now this relates to you if you're a patient of a practitioner and you'd like to support that practitioner, you'd like to see their business grow and you'd like to help them in that way. This is a way that you can help them. And I'll tell you how it helps them. And if you're in Australia, how you can do it in such a way that will help them and not result in them having to call you and say, hey, thanks so much for that testimonial or that review, but could you please change it or amend it because we're not allowed to have that there. It's an unfortunate situation that we're in Australia, just how it is. And I'll also talk in this video about why, what the good side of that is, maybe towards the end of the video if you really want to kind of hear about that. I have made a video on this before, a long one, why you might not see many testimonials in Australia on my particular, I made that for my patients, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, so what's the difference between a review and a testimonial? So a testimonial is something that talks about how the benefit of the treatment helped you. And it's kind of like saying, hey, I went to Marie, and let's give an exaggerated version, like, I couldn't walk, I was in so much pain, and now I can hop and jump and run and skip, and my whole life has changed, I'm so better. So it's creating a potential unrealistic expectation of benefit. That's how AHPRA kind of words it when people see that kind of thing, because what happens to one patient doesn't infer that it will happen to everybody. And it's not a research trial, it's not a controlled study or anything like that. It's just one person's, their experience, one person's experience. And it also means that, like if one person had that experience, that practitioner may have had 100 people that they saw that week that didn't get better, and one person did, but only the one person that did get better put their testimonial on there, and that's all that people see, right? So if you're running a business, you don't put testimonials on purpose of bad experiences that people have, right? So you wouldn't promote those or use those. Now in Australia, practitioners aren't allowed to use any of that stuff in their advertising, whereas in the US people can. They can have like a web page, and it can say, here's what Johnny said when he came to our clinic, and things like that. We just can't do that. So chiropractors, physios, osteopaths, doctors, they can't use any of those things. But we can have reviews. How do you leave a review and not a testimonial? So the first thing is to not mention anything about what happened in the treatment, the results that happened to you, whether they be good or bad, just to not mention the treatment itself. Now, I'm not saying that you can only leave a good review. Lots of people go on Google reviews to leave a negative review. If that's what you want to do, then you're well within your rights to do that. That's you're open to do that. But let's say you want to leave a good review and you're not sure how to say it. So what you can do is you could say, the clinic was very pleasant, I had a good experience, the rooms were clean, or the premises is lovely. You can comment on those kinds of things, or you can just leave your comment very minimal, and if it's on Google, you can just leave a rating. You could just say something like, I really like Marie, I find her very caring, or the clinic is very professional, I would recommend this clinic. You can write that, but you can't talk about what happened to you. Like you can't say, I had back pain and it was so bad and now my pain's better, or I had all these health problems and they've really been resolved. Like, it's lovely for practitioners to hear that, and it creates an awkward situation now when someone leaves that kind of review. So what happens then? So the rules in Australia say that if a practitioner receives a testimonial, they have to do everything in their power to try to remove that. So this is what would happen. If someone put that, like they left it on my website, or they left a comment on my Instagram, or they put a review on my Facebook page or something like that. Some of those things I have the power to remove them. So according to the AHPRA guidelines, if I have the power to remove them, I have to remove them. If I don't have the power to remove them, like Google reviews, for instance, you can't remove them. Like, I can't change them. And that's something that Google has set up, and it's kind of a cool system because it stops people with businesses saying, we'll only have the good ones there and we'll get rid of the negative ones, right? So all the reviews are there, no matter if they're good, bad, or ugly, right? But if I knew who the person was, if I knew who that patient was by like that, so they had their real name there or something, according to the AHPRA guidelines, I have to try to contact that patient and say, this is what I would say. I'd bring them up and say, hey, thank you so much for leaving that review. Really kind of you. Appreciate you doing that. Unfortunately, our AHPRA guidelines require us to contact you and ask you to remove it or to amend it so that it's not a testimonial. And it's kind of awkward because the patients sometimes feel like, I really just wanted to say how great your business was, and they feel like you're not appreciating them. And it's not that. It's just that AHPRA requires us to kind of do that. Now, if it was from a random person there and like it was, Johnny 5-star, and you're like, I have no idea who Johnny 5-star is, and he's left you this review, you just have to leave it. You can't do anything about that. So the AHPRA guidelines say for practitioners, they have to do everything within their power. So as new social medias and different things emerge, that's how it works. So if there is the power to remove reviews or testimonials, to amend them yourself, you have to do that. If you can contact the person, you need to do that. The other thing that practitioners can't do is, let's say someone left them a good review on Google and they were like, oh, I can't recommend that. They can't screenshot that and then put that in their other advertising. They can't put that onto their website and or make use of that in their advertising, because then they're making use of a testimonial. So no one can tell you what you can or can't say, right? But practitioners can't make use of that in their advertising. And so to the best of their control, they have to limit that or stop that from being associated with their business. And like, so for instance, if you're in a group forum or something like that, and you know, I've seen this before, people are in a fertility forum or something, and they're like, oh, I'm looking for an acupuncturist to help me get pregnant. And, you know, they might say, oh, I saw so-and-so, you know, I had, you know, 3 or 4 treatments and then I had a baby. That was great. Highly recommend them. Like, they're giving a recommendation. So no one can stop you from doing that in your groups or even on your own Facebook page or whatever you want to do. But a practitioner can't then take a screenshot of that, even if the patient gave their permission. They can't use that and then put that on their Instagram or their Facebook or whatever. They can't use that. So then further to that, practitioners can't solicit for testimonials. So I can't say to my patients, hey, we're not allowed to use testimonials, but, you know, if you put one on your Instagram, that'd be great. And you just leave it at that, because I'm soliciting, I'm asking you to do that. So that's why I'm also wary of making this video, because I don't want it to be seen as like I'm soliciting for a testimonial. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it has come to my attention recently that Google reviews are, you know, going to be useful for people finding people's businesses. And this is an area that's really lacking for Chinese medicine practitioners. And so that's how you can help them. So the best way you could help them if you want to leave a Google review is to go into Google in your, you know, thing and just leave a review about the premises, about the practice. Just say everything was lovely and professional, or I'd highly recommend this place, or whatever you want to say. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just don't mention the treatment itself and the results of the treatment or anything that happened as part of the treatment. And don't mention what you came in for. I mean, I wouldn't do that anyway, because it's kind of like you don't want your personal information out there on the internet. So that's how you can help your practitioner. So I hope this video has been interesting to you, useful and helpful. Maybe you're a practitioner watching this and you're like interested in knowing that, and so knowing how to navigate that aspect of AHPRA guidelines. So before I finish this video, I just want to mention why it might be a good thing. Because it stops people from being taken advantage of by reading something where they're like, that might apply to that one person. Like I said before, that practitioner might have had, you know, 100 not good cases and 1 good one, and you only see the 1 good one. So reading someone's story is something that we identify with, right? And we think, oh, if that happened for them, that could happen for me. So it can kind of trick people into a false sense of what, you know, could happen from give them a false sense of benefit of the treatment or outcome of the treatment. And so it's considered unethical. And it really comes from the times where people used to be the snake oil salesman, where they would be standing on the soapbox at the corner of the street and just kind of going, oh, here's my one, my baldness cure, and, all your ails will be gone in one swig of this thing. And look what Johnny from, shop number 5 said. 1 swing of this medicine and all my problems were cured, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a way of protecting the public from that. And what generally happens in the world is the people who are the most vulnerable are easily taken in by that. Whereas people who are a little bit smarter or a little bit more savvy, or maybe they're like that because they've been taken advantage of in life before. They're a bit older, they kind of can see through the nonsense of that. But people who are vulnerable, and we want to protect those vulnerable people in society, can easily be taken advantage of that. So people who are vulnerable, people who are younger, they don't have as much experience, or they might just be a bit gullible. They might read something and think, oh, yes, if I read it, it must be true. And that's to protect them in that way. So there is a good side to it, but the downside is it can hurt practitioners to actually just be found on Google now if there's no reviews there. So if you're my patient, you've come to see me, I'd love you to leave me a review. Please don't leave me a testimonial. You'll be having to get a call to follow that up. But if you have had a good experience at my clinic and you'd recommend me to other people, all you need to do is just leave the review as you'd like to leave it, and just don't mention anything about the treatment, and just say, Marie's clinic's great, would recommend it, or something like that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time to watch this video. Hopefully it's been explanatory and helpful to you. And I'll see you again on another video soon. Thanks for your interest in Chinese medicine.